So to start with, what I wanted to do was just take a few minutes to talk about actually Wolfram Syndrome UK, our charity. I'm calling it sort of expanding our reach because it talks a little bit to really why I started to get involved in the charity. So I'm John Isherwood, I am the chairman, but I've known Paul and Tracy for a number of years, and about 4 years ago they asked me to start to get involved in the charity in a more direct way. We're really with the goal of making sure that we can do more, stretch more, and actually just try and sort of grow the charity. And I wanted to just sort of take some time to sort of talk to you about what we've done and what our activities are and what our focus is. But, and this is probably a really important part, you know, the charity is here, I guess, for you guys, for the community. And whilst hopefully we're doing the right things, what we really want to do is hear from you. And if there's anything that we're not doing, if there's more support, more sort of focus, areas that you think we should be sort of pushing into, look, we want to hear from you. And that's why it's great having everybody in the room. There's a number of sort of the charity members in attendance, so please just sort of reach out, have a chat. And we really want to sort of take your comments on board and make sure that everything that we do is really being done in the most effective way. So please talk to us. So on that note, I thought perhaps we'll start with maybe just sort of introducing the team and the members. Tracy obviously is our CEO, co-founder as well, and really sort of the driving force behind the charity. She does a lot of the day-to-day work. Supported by the trustee board, so the rogues gallery that you can sort of see across the top. And what we think is we've got a board that actually has a real diversity sort of skill set and experience, and it means that actually we've got a lot of different viewpoints that are sort of coming into the charity to try and sort of give that guidance as to where we should be focusing. So I've talked about myself, obviously Paul, Tracy's husband, another co-founder. Paul and Tracy obviously have a daughter, Jennifer, who is WS affected. And by having sort of Paul and Tracy involved, what it means is we have that real sort of lived-in experience of some of the challenges that everybody's having on a day-to-day basis, and that is coming directly through that board. Alongside Paul, we've got Nish. He's relatively new to the trustee board. He's our finance expert, so he's an accountant, he's been working with numbers. What he does is he keeps us on the straight and narrow in terms of making sure that all the numbers work. It's one of those sort of jobs that is really needed. It always comes down to numbers. Next we have Professor Tim Barrett. I'm sure you're all aware of Tim. Tim's sort of in the back there. We're really honoured, honestly, to have Tim involved with that charity. Being able to have what we think is the person that knows the most about Wolfram Syndrome actually directly involved with that charity just means that, you know, we're taking all the decisions really with that viewpoint of somebody that just knows it better than anybody else. I'm not 100% sure that's true, but certainly from our point of view, Tim, we're saying you know more than anybody. So to have Tim involved in the board, we're just so pleased with that. Next up is Alan, who did the introductions. Alan's been a part of the trustee board really from the inception, and it's always really, really valuable just to have somebody that is so dedicated to making sure the charity works, pushes forward, and honestly, you know, we wouldn't function without people like Alan, so really pleased to have Alan on board. And then the final member of the board is Abby. Where's Abby? Abby's here somewhere. Oh, there you are, sorry. Two really, really important roles. Abby obviously is WS affected, and again what it means is, so we've got the parents' view on the board, but we've also got a WS affected viewpoint coming into the board. So we've got perspective coming from two different viewpoints. That's so valuable to make sure we're making the right decisions. Excuse me. The other important thing that Abby does is she reduces the average age of the board by about 20 years.
Thank you, Paul.
Because of that, she's also our social media expert, so she teaches us about Facebook and how we can actually engage at a level that is way beyond mine. So look, that's the board that works, obviously supporting Tracy. We also have Gina that has sort of come on board. She started off really in a role of trying to sort of bring in funds, mainly through the sort of the grants. She still does that. But one of the key activities, which I'll start to talk about as we go through these slides, is a contract that we're starting to get into place with Birmingham Children's Hospital. And Gina's been negotiating that contract and will come into actually the employee scheme within Wolfram Syndrome, and is going to be a sort of paid up member of staff, mainly to run that contract with the Children's Hospital, but as well as sort of continuing the grant role and funding and all of those sort of financial aspects. Then we have 2 new employees who've started in the summer, and again, I hope you can sort of see when I'm talking about us growing. You know, we're significantly growing. So we've gone from 2 employees to 4 employees really over the course of the summer. And we're really excited to have both Philippa and Georgina on board. They're providing a role directly as support coordinators. Georgina on the family side, Philippa on the adult side. And by bringing Philippa and Georgina into the charity, what it means is that there'll be more direct contact with you guys. So hopefully we'll be able to reach out, we'll be able to understand your concerns, we'll be able to provide whatever support you need. And also you'll have that sort of, hopefully sort of easily contactable person. So if there's any issues, you know who to speak to, and it just makes that process of getting your questions answered hopefully quicker, hopefully more efficient. So we're really pleased to have you guys on board, both of you in the room. So everybody that I've talked about, I mean, we have Georgina, Philippa, Alan, myself, Tim. I mean, please take the time to chat to us. And like I said at the top, any concerns, comments, questions, come and speak to us. We're here to listen. We want to be here for you. Final person I really shouldn't forget is Mike Pearson. Again, there's a lot of administration that comes into running a charity. Mike completely volunteers, and he's an HR expert. He provides legal advice, and he's an MBE, which we kind of think it makes us sound quite posh, doesn't it? But really great guy, and really helpful to actually everything that we do as a charity. So what I wanted to do was then just talk about what is it that we try and do as a charity, and I've tried to encapsulate that in this slide. It's quite a busy slide, so maybe let me just sort of talk it through. But what we see as Wolfram syndrome is really sort of talked about in our logo and the strapline, which is informed, support and cure. And those 3 aspects really provide the foundation and the pillars to pretty much everything that we're sort of trying to do, again, out into the WS community. So obviously there's aspects such as funding, charity administration, you know, the works that we have with the hospital, but that is always going to one of those 3 aspects. And so look, let me talk in a little bit of detail around what we're actually doing and how that works. So I'll start with inform, and the inform part of the leg is really one of awareness, and I think it really comes back to when the charity was first set up by Tracy and Paul. And when they first had that diagnosis of Wolfram syndrome for their daughter Jennifer, that they basically left the hospital with a ratty bit of A4 with a few words around what Wolfram syndrome was, and really felt that actually there was an absence of understanding and knowledge. And they took it on themselves to actually try and improve that knowledge base and set up a Wolfram syndrome support group. And that started with, you know, just trying to get that understanding out there, the level of information around what is Wolfram syndrome, what are the symptoms, what actually happens. But that sort of inform has sort of then grown, and I think we've recognised that actually that awareness also needs to be sort of built into the medical community. Wolfram syndrome is a complex syndrome. You know this a lot better than I do. There's a number of different symptoms, and it can be difficult to diagnose. And I think the medical community understanding Wolfram syndrome, what it looks like, and making sure they get that diagnosis as soon as they can is just beneficial to everybody. And so we as a charity, we're trying to help that. And so we develop handbooks, we've done awareness campaigns through the medical community. There's a lot of information that we put on our website, but it's all about just trying to bring that awareness up so that people can find out what happens around Wolfram syndrome, but also so the medical community, like I say, can just help and speed up the diagnosis. So that informed part, it's a critical part of what we're trying to do. The next one is support, and it's quite a wide-ranging subject, honestly, but what we're looking to do is actually provide direct support to not only WS affected, but also sort of caregivers, parents, you know, the wider network. I think we recognise that Wolfram syndrome just affects everybody in that whole community, and what we want to do as a charity is make sure that we're providing as much support to help you guys as we possibly can. Now, we've put a lot of focus on that particular area in the last sort of few years. I think COVID actually sort of accelerated our thinking a little bit, and we sort of recognised actually everybody could feel quite isolated. And so we set up a lot of sort of online chats and a lot of sort of web-based discussion groups just to try and make sure that you guys all had that sort of link in and some communication. But we've sort of taken it to the next step now, and what we've been doing is really starting to work closely with the Birmingham Children's Hospital. And I've sort of teased this contract a little bit already, and I'll come onto it in a little bit more detail, but we as a charity really wanted to get closer to what's actually happening in the hospitals, because it really provides us with the benefit of understanding, again, sort of diagnosis and the hospital process, if you like, from your side. And again, always with a view to what can we do to help? What is it that we can do to support? And again, that's why Philippa, Georgina, they're going to be so key to just really bridging that gap and making sure that we're helping you guys in the best way possible. So then the final string is cure. I mean, we call it cure. Nobody in the charity, I'm afraid, is going to be curing orphan syndrome. But what we can do is we can actually try and facilitate the experts that do understand and are doing research to actually try and sort of really build that understanding of what orphan syndrome is about, and hopefully through that understanding then positive things can happen, and you know, maybe there's things that can be found out that obviously alleviate the condition. So I suppose there's two things that I'd like to really sort of draw out from that. Firstly, we've supported Tim's clinical trial, the Treat Orphan trial, which hopefully I think you're all very aware of. Now, we don't provide the funding for the trial itself, but what we do is we support getting all of the patients or all of the people that are involved with the trial, making it as easy as possible for them to get to the hospitals, whether that's through financing, accommodation, travel, but just, you know, supporting the logistics around running a trial. And we will continue to do that. We sort of recognise that trial is a very key event when it comes to orphan syndrome, and something that we as a charity are happy to support really in any way that we can. Alongside that, there's also what I would call sort of more pure research, and I think we've always recognised that we would like to direct funds into researching orphan syndrome, and the question we've always had, you know, with the exception of Tim, who understands everything, you know, we as a board, you know, we're not medical people, we don't really understand, and so what we've done is we've set up an independent panel which has 3, might even be 4, I think, sort of medical experts, doctors that do understand it. And the purpose of this panel is that as we get requests for funding activities, what we can do is we can pass it through the panel, and they can basically give us an opinion as to whether that's a really good use of the spend. And what it means is that sort of any money that we're directing into sort of orphan syndrome research, we've had that real validation that actually that's being spent in the most efficient and effective way. So Cure has always been sort of part of that platform, and I think together that really sort of forms our overall strategy. But again, I will keep coming back to it. We want to hear from you, and if there's stuff that we're not doing that you think we could be doing, if you've got any comments, just let us know. It's very adaptable, and you know, none of this is set in stone, so it's all a learning effort and an evolution to try and sort of get to the best possible way of working. So the next, I've sort of teased this a couple of times, which is our contract with the Birmingham Children's Hospital, and I've gone too early with this, by the way. So I'm talking about a contract. Unfortunately, it's not signed. So there's still a few pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that we need to sort of pull together. But we do have an agreement in principle. We do have Georgina in play, who's going to be a key part of sort of delivering on that contract. And the expectation is that will go live really from sort of the next clinic round onwards. It's a 3-year contract, and from a charity perspective, it's so valuable for, well, 2 reasons really. Firstly, I think it really starts to bridge that gap into the hospital and the work that's actually going on with WS Affected to really sort of try and understand and help. So by providing that bridge, we'll have a better understanding of what's going on at sort of the hospital level. The second important point is actually it is a paid contract, and it provides some certainty of income to us as a charity. And look, all charities are in the same boat. Money is a challenge. Everything costs money. And so to have that security of an income for sort of 3 years just brings us the confidence that actually we can bring employees on board. So Georgina, Philippa, you know, they were brought on because we had the confidence of a contract coming. So it takes a degree of stress around how are we going to pay for all of this. So it provides us as a board an awful lot of comfort. So what does the contract actually mean? It's quite broad-ranging. There's a lot of services that's involved, but I've tried to sort of break it down to 3 probably key points. First one is really a practical one. It's clinic coordination. And what it is working with the clinics to make sure that everybody's aware of when the clinic's taking place, everybody's aware of the sort of the coordination, the logistics, and we can just really make sure that we're getting the people into the clinics in the best and the most effective way. Alongside that we have, I'm calling it patient advocacy, but that's probably just a long way of saying it provides a feedback loop so that actually we're sitting there and taking the comments of anybody that's attending those clinics, finding out what's going well, finding out what's not going well, and then there's a very formal sort of feedback mechanism into the hospital where it can be reviewed, and hopefully we can get those clinics working as well as they possibly can. So that patient advocacy is really quite key. And then the final part of the piece is just the family support, and I've sort of talked about support in a number of sort of different ways, but it's really emotional, practical support to affected children, and I think that's where, you know, Georgina will be sort of interacting and just providing that resource, I guess, for you to use to actually, you know, if you've got issues, if you've got problems, just reach out and we will try and do whatever we can. And so those really are the sort of the 3 key points, and I think when we sign the contract, which hopefully will be in the next month or so, I think that really gives us as a charity a real stepping stone to actually just doing more and growing and becoming hopefully a more mature organisation that, like I say, can just do more with you guys. So how are we doing on time? 2 minutes? And then we can go for a little bit.
Yeah, keep going.
So look, those are the main points I really wanted to talk to you about, but there's a few other slides, because it's not just that we're doing. There's the sort of the day job, if you like, of resources that we're pulling together. The internet, I think, is a really key, or our website, I should say, is something we've put a lot of focus on in the last sort of few years, and we're hoping that it's the repository of all information relating to orphan syndrome. So if you've got any questions, in an ideal world, there'll be a document, there'll be some information on that website that you can just go to, and hopefully you can sort of get that. I'm sure you've all gone on the website. If you haven't, please do. And again, we're open to comments. If you want to see something else, if you think there's something that's difficult to find, just tell us, we can refine it. But we see the website as being really, really, really key. Alongside that, we have aspects such as the quarterly newsletter, which hopefully you all get, social media, which I don't really understand, honestly, but I guess Abby knows all about that. And I know Tracy's sort of set up sort of reach out sessions, that sort of fortnightly resource where actually people can get together in a very informal way and just talk. You know, no specific agenda, but it's just a resource that I guess brings people together, so actually you can talk to things. And I think that's the feedback we've had from that is really well received and actually really, really useful. The next thing I wanted to talk about was some of the sort of the projects and activities that we get involved with, and breaking down barriers is perhaps a really good example of that. So the Breaking Down Barriers initiative is something that was actually run by the Oldstrom charity. So they've raised a fairly significant amount of money and then sort of involved a lot of different charity organisations to sort of come in, but with the aim of really sort of breaking down barriers and being able to sort of access, particularly sort of minority communities, to make sure that everybody has access to the information and everybody is able to really understand our messages and what we're trying to say. A part of that is we've been so lucky to get some community videos sort of being produced by a number of sort of our affected community. They're on the website. I think the link is in the bottom. If you've not seen them, I really encourage you to have a look at it. Really informative, actually quite moving in a lot of places. And you know, the aim of these videos is really so that as people can get diagnosed or as people have questions, actually they can see what people are actually experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And so, you know, this was all funded through the Breaking Down Barriers initiative, and it's something that we were really, really sort of pleased to be a part of, and I think we've seen a lot of benefit from. And we're always looking at those type of initiatives. So alongside everything else that I've talked about, we're always trying to sort of move in the right directions and sort of tackle these type of points. My last slide, I sort of said it already, but unfortunately a charity needs money to carry out all of these activities. Look, we're in sort of funny economic positions at the moment where sort of cost of living is just going through the roof. The charities' costs have that same level of exposure, so costs are going up. And then we have the added challenge that obviously people's disposable income is going down, so our ability to sort of reach into the community, it becomes that much more difficult. That said, we've got some pretty mature now sort of fundraising activities and events that we do. So we have a golf day. We did our 9th annual golf day back in the summer. That's now become an event, and it's sort of very successful. We run an 80s night. Again, maybe I'm probably talking to the age of the board, the fact that we get excited about the 80s night, but hey look, all we've always done is had a sort of a sold out event, and it's becoming part of the calendar, and it's not actually seen as a fundraising event now, it's seen as an event. And that's really the best of both worlds, when you've got something that actually people really want to go to, because then actually they really start to fund it and support it. And it's activities like that, they take a lot of coordination, a lot of activity, but it means that alongside aspects such as the contract, which we've already talked about, it means that we're getting comfortable that actually we've got a strong source of income coming into the charity, which allows us to obviously deliver as much as we can, and the goals that I guess we've sort of talked about. Look, I'm already a few minutes over, so I'm probably going to pause there. That's probably me done. But again, I've said it 3 times now, but look, this is for you, so please reach out, talk to us, and we can obviously hopefully align, become more efficient, become better at what we're doing, but we need you to tell us.